Well, AJ Preller gave us a homework assignment essentially because we're going to recap the trade deadline, all the prospects that got moved, and about 40% of them are going to be guys that AJ Preller sent out of town. So I'm excited to talk a lot about them. We might as well rebrand this as the former Padres prospect farm system, recap here. But no, we have a bunch of other trades to recap as well. We're going to talk about a lot of prospects that moved. We did part one of that last week, but part two going on today. Aram Layton, Jack McMullen. We still got a lot of prospects to talk about.
I think this is technically part three. Didn't we
Part
do
three.
like a part one of the early movers
Yeah,
and
it's like
then,
two and a
yeah, like
half. Part
there were
two
a
B.
couple that we did, but we did one on Thursday at 2 p.m. And of course, we had 4 hours after that. And AJ Preller made two more moves. So we got to talk about those and a couple others that came in at the buzzer.
A lot that went down over the last few hours. It was a really fun deadline. I know
Yeah.
we broke down some of the major moves that had happened earlier, but as you know, it starts to get really going over those final couple hours when teams are working against that deadline there. And then we'll be talking top 100 newcomers on a later episode this week. So excited about that as well because we got to give the top 100 list a little bit of love too. It's crazy timing. We wanted to get that out before the deadline so that that would be up to date. But also with catching up with the deadline, we have some stuff that we need to catch up with to break down the top 100 update. But I do want to just shout out real quick Carson Bench, who we put at 19 on the update. That dude I think the OPS has got to be near 1,200 in Double A now. The Mets have their guy here, and it's amazing that Carson Bench fell to where he did, and it's just continuing to hammer home the idea that the 2024 class, by the way, is just sick. Like it's gonna be really good when we look back at this thing. But Carson Bench now, I just wanted to shout this out before we start. His last 25 games, this dude is slashing 381, 469, 691. That's an 1160 OPS with 8 homers, a 54% hard hit rate, and 14 walks or 15 walks, 14 strikeouts.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I'm just looking at what he did. Because he was really good in high A too, right? It was 60 games at a 302 clip and an 897 OPS. But the fact that he's leveling up in double A, they maneuvered this deadline exceptionally well, where they get a rental closer or setup guy, I guess, for them, given the situation in Ryan Helsley. They also go and get a rental center fielder, and they gave up none of the tier one or tier two. And it's quickly becoming very clear that Benj is at the top of tier one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean Jets playing well and they got other guys playing well, but this is the dude there. I was sitting there looking out at center field and I'm like, think they're going to have their answer as soon as next year out there. So I just wanted to give him a quick shout because he just will not slow down. But we're talking about traded prospects, and by all accounts, he was not even being remotely dangled, listened to. That it was a non-starter. But some other guys did get moved.
Yes, they did. Let's start with the Ryan O'Hearn Ramon Laureano package, and that was kind of the big one from AJ Preller at the buzzer. And the whole deal was San Diego acquired Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano from Baltimore. O'Hearn, obviously a rental, and Laureano, a guy that comes with another year of control. But the give up for San Diego, six guys, led by Boston Bateman, Cobb Hightower in there as well, Brandon Butterworth, a pitcher, Victor Figueroa, Tyson Neighbors, and Tanner Smith. The three names that jump out based on when we did the Padres top prospects were Bateman, Hightower, and Tyson Neighbors. Where do you want to start there?
I'll start with Bateman. We had talked about him as a guy that I think you look at 6'7" Southpaw prepster, 19 years old. There's a lot to like there and a lot to be excited about. And then you consider the fact that the fastball's averaged 95 miles per hour this year, and the slider is played like an above average pitch, and you get a lot to dream on. And then, I think going into this, there was a lot of reliever risk with the 6'7" prep lefty who really didn't have a ton beyond the two pitches. But while there still is some reliever risk, right? It's still 63% fastball usage. He has shown a changeup that has a chance, and he has flashed a curveball that's not bad. And so if those two pitches can come along here in the Orioles organization, then Bateman has a chance to stick in that rotation and be, a starting pitcher and an interesting one, given that 6'7" lefties who get ground balls don't grow on trees. But the fact that the command has gotten better too, where he's only walking 8.5%, this is a good get. I do even wonder, like, I don't know where teams if they would recalibrate so dramatically so quickly, but Bateman's younger than Cash Mayfield, throwing much harder than Cash Mayfield, and is being stretched out a little bit more. So who knows? That might have been a guy that they even preferred. So I think it's a good get pitching wise for the O's, and I think he's trending quite well overall.
Cobb Hightower coming into this year was probably a name that you were higher on than you are right now. Third round pick out of high school last year, but he was older for the prep ranks. He's 20 years old. He's in low A, and the OPS is under 700 for Cobb Hightower right now. But why is the promise still there?
I like the sum of the parts there, right? Where you got a guy that has sneaky bat speed, really good plate discipline, can move all over the diamond, has a chance to stick it short, but could be that super utility type. He's got a good feel for the barrel. I think there's a little bit more room for more strength. He started the year hurt, and that definitely I think is like bled into the start of his professional career where he's just struggled out of the gate, but it's been better of late. And he was riding a hot streak right into the trade. So I'm interested to see if he can kind of build up on that and keep that rolling. I like him because the floor is high, right, relative to most other prepsters. I think there's a great chance of him at least being that utility and field type. But I still think there's more in there as he gets a little bit more comfort pulling the ball harder in the air. Like the spray charts are weird. He's not pulling the ball nearly as much as he should. Other things will come along, but I still think he's a good piece to get and a high probability, at least depth piece in the infield.
Last guy that I want to highlight in this deal is Tyson
Yeah.
Neighbors, a reliever that I know you love. Neighbors is punching out north of 13 hitters per nine this year. 43 and two thirds, 22 and two thirds came with Fort Wayne. 18 appearances at a 1.19 ERA, K'd 39 and walked eight. He's gone to San Antonio, and the ERA through 21 innings is at 2.6, and he's punched out 25 in his 21 innings of work. Big note there, 10 hits allowed in
Oh,
21 innings in Double A. He he was just going to be another one of those spawned setup type guys for San Diego next year, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they held on to a couple of their other guys, so you figured he was going to kind of turn into a trade piece for them. But the fastball gets plus ride at 95, and then he's got this hard slider at 89. That's a clear plus pitch off of that. He commands the slider better than the fastball, and then he'll mix in, a curveball that looks like an above average third pitch. So he's really got a legit heater and a pair of good breaking balls, and that's why he's striking out 38% of batters nearly. The fastball command could get a little bit better, and I noticed with a lot of these guys that create sometimes a very over the top like legit vert and stay behind the baseball really well. Sometimes it kind of sprays east west a little bit more than they want it to, or like just they kind of spike it a little bit. So his fastball command has not been totally there. But if that comes along a little bit further, I mean, this is high leverage stuff. But I think it will. He's been around the zone enough to be very effective, and I think this is a guy that could be plugging into the Orioles bullpen as soon as next year.
Any of the other three that you have thoughts on? Butterworth, Figueroa, and Tanner Smith?
Figueroa, man. I mean, we barely talked about him when we did the Padres top prospects, but this is a guy that kind of came out of nowhere, and this is another one of those scouting successes of what the Padres do, right? They just find these uh, like JUCO guys or non-drafted guys or late round guys that may not have a ton of interest because they're limited to corner or first base, and it's the Romeo Sanabria that type of conversation here. And I think they did it again with Figueroa, and the fact that they could turn him that quickly into a trade piece is. That's why Preller does this thing. But Figueroa they started him at the complex because he was a guy that came out of Mississippi Valley State and then Florida Southwestern. So I think they wanted to take it slow with him. He put up video game numbers on the complex. So then they moved him to low A, and it was more the same in terms of just being too good for low A. And since they've bumped him up to high A now, which I think is exciting. Like after the trade, it was signed him straight to high A. So he came down to earth a little bit over the last couple weeks in low A, but I mean, 21-year-old that kind of came out of nowhere with an EV90 of 107 miles per hour. He hit a home run like 470 feet already. It's just crazy, crazy pop from the left side, and it's a good flyer to take as a third piece here too.
I dig it. All right, let's go to the Merrill Kelly trade. Kelly goes from Arizona to the Texas Rangers. And the return for Merrill Kelly, Cole Drake, a pitcher, along with pitchers David Hageman and Mitch Bratt. Mitch Bratt from WBC fame, but Drake is the guy that you're highest on in here. He's older, though.
Yeah, he is older. And I will say, by the way, Butterworth, also fine infield type too to mix in there. 12 homers in 91 games this year, and it looks like he's going to be a utility piece. Played center field, second base, shortstop, so not a bad get either. And they signed him straight to Double A. But going back to just kind of the conversation of Colt Drake, I mean, this stuff is super underrated, and honestly overlooked by me when I did the Ranger system. And something that and then the more you start to tune into this guy, seeing what he's doing from the left side and what he did last year, big swing and miss numbers. The fastball is legit. I mean, he will creep into the mid 90s, but it's more 93, 95 with good life to it. And he's filling up the zone at like a 70% clip with it. Then you got the curveball, changeup, and a cutter that all look like solid secondary offerings that he mixes in. And yeah, you got a 29% K rate. You're going to be in good shape for the most part, and that's between Double A and then of course the PCL. And he's had to pitch in some tough environments in the PCL, so you got to take kind of the ERA numbers with a grain of salt. But you look at what he did last year, what he's doing this year. I mean, this is a guy that at the very least can be left-handed reliever for you, but I think this is a back end starter that you can plug into the rotation sooner rather than later.
And then the other two, is it just, you're taking flyers? Like Hageman, I've heard nothing about before. Mitch Bratt was a guy that, all of a sudden was pretty good in the lower levels of the minor leagues, but I haven't heard much over the last year or so.
I like Bratt. Is he's that pitchability lefty that like I'm interested to see how it plays in Arizona and that environment as a fly ball pitcher. But
I didn't realize the numbers were this good, though. 90 and two-thirds, he's hit 106 and walked 16.
yeah, we ranked him in the top 15 going into the year, and I mean he's even better than that. Obviously, with what he's done, the K to BB is awesome, right? What is that? 24% K minus BB.
Ooh, I don't have that up,
I think
but
that's
I
what
can
I
do that.
got. But you got a 72% strike rate on the heater, which it's just 92 miles an hour, but there's deception built in as a lefty, and there's ride to it, like plus ride. He's getting 38% chase on the fastball, and he's spotting it. So you have confidence in that being able to outperform the velocity. Then he has a slider that is an above average pitch, but his ability to command it, I think, has it playing closer to a plus pitch. That has a
Yeah.
70% strike rate with good in zone whiff numbers. Then he sprinkles in a curveball, which is a fine pitch, but he commands it really well as well. And then a changeup that he'll mix in too. So I think he can kind of be this pitchability back into the rotation guy that gets by on a fastball that people don't expect to be as good as it is. So he could be a five starter for them. So if you got two back end starters here, it's not a bad get, I think. And then, yeah, Hageman is definitely not a guy that I think was getting a ton of love. But when you look at the raw stuff there too, 22 years old, making his pro debut this season. And they started him at the complex. I think he started with an injury this year, and then has since been pitching in low A and has been kind of easing up. But fastball's average 94 miles an hour. The slider is disgusting, and the changeup has been disgusting. The two secondaries opponents are a combined 3 for 36 against this year. I understand it's lower level competition, but when you've got a slider performing like that and a changeup that looks like it could be a plus pitch, it's a trio of arms that don't have a monster upside, but you were never going to get that for a rental. So might as well go bulk and get three arms that can fill big league roles for you. And I think Hageman can probably be, a swing man type, maybe a reliever as well. And
Yeah.
then you got potentially two five starters, which again, it's a rental, and nobody was giving up major pieces this year.
Nope, not at all. Okay, let's go to a Toronto and Minnesota swap. And this might have been the most shocking for you visually on the draft live stream, which was awesome, or on the trade deadline live stream. Thank you guys again for being a part of that. But that deal was nuts. And that was Louis Varland and Ty France going from Minnesota to Toronto. And I understand that Varland has several years of control and he's turned into a really good reliever. But it was a return of Kendry Rojas and Alan Roden.
Yeah.
Felt so steep in real time.
Yeah, and maybe I'm higher on Rojas than the Jays were, but I they've moved him quick, right? We were talking about he came back from injury this year, quickly to Double A, made four starts in Double A, or 5, and then it was straight to AAA. And he got roughed up in his AAA debut, but who hasn't? When we talk about guys getting up there, and then he got traded. So Rojas is a guy that I think you got to be excited to be getting if you're the Twins, where 95 miles per hour from the left side. He's going to need to find a little bit more, I think, shape separation and a little bit more vertical separation between his splitter and the fastball. But the splitter has played pretty well this year, and the slider looks like it can be an above average pitch. So you have a lefty with a good 3 pitch mix. I think hyper athletic on the mound at 22 years old. That's a fun get, and a guy that. Again, we put him on the top 100 list for a reason. I just think the floor is high with the way he fills up the zone and the uptick fastball velocity wise, right? I mean, you look at what he was doing last year. He was sitting 93 with the fastball, and early returns this year have him averaging 95. So with good characteristics, averaging 95 from the left side, that's going to play pretty well. And then you got a couple secondaries, especially with the splitter leading the way, that look like they can be quality pitches for him. So he looks like he could be that 4 or 5 starter for you, but maybe you can dream on a little bit more given how athletic he is. And a
Yeah.
guy that's already in AAA as a 22-year-old, I think you got to be pumped about that. And then Alan Roden, I don't know if the ceiling's exorbitantly high, but you have a guy that I think can at least hit the bulk of the platoon and play great defense in either corner. And he's going to fill a big league role for you without a doubt. You hope that the bat continues to come along and maybe he can be that everyday, above average corner outfielder. But he's a good get on top of Rojas.
Yeah, I mean, it really just felt like they got 12 years of, possible good stuff for a guy in Louis Varland who was turning into what their, fifth reliever on the totem pole there. But Minnesota, they had a gluttony of those. It was a little weird to me to see Minnesota move Duran and Jax and then also move Varland
That
because I
was
feel
my
like if
only
you were
problem with it.
moving Duran and Jax, why would you not hold on to a guy like Varland?
That was my only problem with it was that, and apparently Jax may have like requested a trade or something like that as he started to see people get moved. So maybe
Yeah.
that played into it. But I just that was where it's like, okay, you have the hometown kid in Varland, like maybe you keep him and put him into the closer role. But I get it when you have the opportunity to get a big league bat right now and a guy that's not far off from potentially being able to help your rotation. And it's not like they got then Ricky Tiedemann right now, not a ton of left-handed pitching prospects that you can acquire from the Blue Jays. So the fact that you could kind of pry a Rojas away, you'll get the twin situation. It's not like they have a ton of left-handed pitching prospects either. So I think it is nice to add a guy like that to the fold.
Got you. Let's go to the Camilo Doval deal because Camilo Doval went from San Francisco to the New York Yankees. 4 prospects went from New York to San Francisco. It was headlined by Jesus Rodriguez, who was, if I'm not mistaken, a top 10 prospect
Yeah,
for you in the Yankees system. And then Parks Harbor, Tristan Vierling, and Carlos De La Rosa. Much like the Bednar deal, it feels like the Yankees in real time got away with highway robbery, where they're giving up a decent player who is on the back end of their top 10, top 15, but they're not paying a premium for a closer with control. And I understand Doval is incredibly volatile and his Yankee debut did not go awesome. But at the end of the day, Doval is one of the hardest throwers in Major League Baseball. And when he's around the strike zone, he's one of the best closers in the game. And he's an all-star caliber closer. Jesus Rodriguez as a headliner just felt a little light in the moment.
I know it must just be the price that upper minors catchers carry. And that's why I think the Yankees do have a savvy approach to this thing where it's when we talk about small market teams creating assets, the Yankees have created assets with their ability to develop catchers. And Rodriguez has turned himself into a good catcher. And that's why he was in the top 10 for us, right? You talk about well above average bat to ball. You could argue maybe plus bat to ball. And then sneaky gap to gap juice that the problem is going to be there's just not enough raw impact in there, but an absolute rocket for an arm behind the dish. The receiving has come along to where I think he could be an average at least, but maybe potentially above average and aggregate defender. So guy that puts bat on ball and is an above average defender, that's going to be a good chance of being a decent catcher to flank Bailey there. So and a refreshing guy that's going to just put the ball in play consistently. So I think he's a good backup catcher for you, but also a guy that could be an average primary catcher if it all works out, and is basically just too good for AAA at this point. So that's the good part too, is you acquire a guy that I think over his last 20 games had a 914 OPS at AAA. It seems like he's close to big league ready and being able to help the team, but yeah, it's not the sexiest headliner in the world, I would say. And then Parks Harbor, is one of those guys that just puts up ridiculous numbers, but I don't think anyone's going to buy it until he fully gets to the big leagues and does it. And right now he's in high A at 23 years old. It is
Yeah.
crazy pop. You're talking about a 56% hard hit rate, EV 90 of 108, and a 37% ground ball rate. So he's going to elevate and hit it hard. But at the same time, it's only 6 home runs in 53 games. So it's like, okay,
Huh.
well, what's lacking here? Like,
How
why?
do those numbers correlate though? Like, can you answer the why?
The first place I would go would be average launch angle on hard hit balls, but that's 12 degrees, which is like slightly below average, but not bad. It's weird. So then I would probably go towards pulling the ball in the air and like how much he's pulling the ball. But still, when your EVs are that gaudy, like I don't know how he doesn't have more home runs. That's where I would almost have to start to dig into like what's the spin orientation on his batted balls? Like is he top spinning more than you would think? Because otherwise it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. It's a really weird batted ball profile to have those underlying characteristics and so few homers.
Hmm. Yeah, that doesn't make much sense at all to me, but okay. Two other guys in that deal, Tristan Vierling or Vreiling, and then Carlos De La Rosa. Do you have anything on those guys?
Not much. Tristan Veiling was a guy that I saw a little bit in the fall league. And I think there's enough there to maybe be kind of like a middle relief type. I I don't think those. I think felt like that was kind of more of the just like package in a few extra guys and see if you can
Yeah.
push the deal across the finish line. But Ryling's going to be 25 years old in a couple months, and he's kind of expanded the arsenal to be this like be more of the kitchen sink type of guy, where you're getting fastball,
Okay.
sinker, curveball, cutter, changeup. And I think the only pitch that looks above average is the curveball. So it seems like more of that swingman type for you. But yeah, that's probably about all I got on him.
Gotcha. Okay. We're going to get to the next deal, which is Cedric Mullins in a moment. But before that, I want to tell you about our friends at Ethos Life Insurance because the trade deadline could be tough for maybe half the fan bases in Major League Baseball. And you're thinking, man, like they're going to stress me out to no end. Obviously, stress results in so many things. I want to make sure my family's okay if my baseball team it really stresses me out and deteriorates my health. So that is why you should be trusting our friends at Ethos. They are an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not in months. No complicated process. It's 100% online. There's no medical exam required. You just answer a few health questions. Get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. You can get same day coverage without ever leaving your house. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/justbaseball. That's ethos, ethos.com/justbaseball. Let's talk Cedric Mullins and that deal sent Cedric Mullins to the New York Mets from the Baltimore Orioles, and the return for Mullins were three prospects: Ramon Gomez, a pitcher; Chandler Marsh, another pitcher; and Anthony Nunez, a third baseman. Ramon Gomez is the only name I feel like I've heard before in this three-player package.
Ramon Gomez was the guy that was making headlines throwing like 120 miles an hour
That's right.
early in the year. And I mean, he throws so hard. It's crazy. So you get an arm that averages 100.5 miles per hour on the fastball, but you also get an arm who, God, what a terrifying duality here. 16% walk rate, 100.5 mile per hour fastball.
Yeah, I'm good.
Is there talk about ethos? Like, you need ethos in case you got to get in the
Hmm.
box against Ramon Gomez. Like it's, I could not imagine how scary that is. But you're getting an arm here that throws. I mean, he's had outings this year where he has averaged 102 miles per hour. So you're hoping that he can harness it enough to be a back end of the bullpen kind of guy. I'm a little skeptical given that he's in high A and he's going to be 24 years old. So, but you're acquiring just sheer arm talent there, right? And then Chandler Marsh, he's another guy. He's a reliever, right? I mean, he's already a minor league reliever as well. He's
Yeah.
at high A, but 6'4", 250. Fastball averages 95, and the slider looks like it's a plus pitch. So you just another guy that you can maybe just project into a reliever. But yeah, I mean, I thought Mullins might get you a little bit more, but I also realized that he was really struggling prior to the trade after he had
Yeah.
started so well, but then after the trade or leading into the trade,
Yeah.
it was rough. So I think that the I guess the Orioles just wanted a couple arms that could potentially fit into the bullpen and then go from there. I think Anthony Nunez was probably the most impactful get there though,
Hmm.
like in terms of who can project the best and turn into something I think the most impactful, but it's also another guy that unless they start to try to stretch him back out again is a reliever, but when I look at the arsenal, I do think is a guy that they could try to move back into a starter role. Like he's got a cutter, a sweeper, a sinker, a splitter, and then the four seamer as well. Maybe they try that, but he's definitely got the most intriguing pitch mix. But he's 24 years old as well. He is striking out 40% of batters and holding them to a 115 batting average though this year. So if they want to use him as a reliever too, uh, seems like already in Double A, like that could be a guy that could be in your bullpen as soon as next year. So if you get a couple bullpen pieces out of it, I guess that works. Um, Last 18 appearances for Nunez, a 1.29 ERA in Double A. So he's been pretty good.
It just seemed like the price point for rentals was incredibly low.
Yep.
If it's not a starting pitcher, everybody wanted the world for starting pitchers. Nobody was willing to do that. But in terms of rental bats, like the only reason that deal was so gaudy between Baltimore and San Diego is because Laureano was involved. If
Yep.
O'Hearn is the return, like, okay, it's you're paying him $3.5 million for the rest of this year and then he walks. It was Laureano that upped the price on that. So the rental bat, it just seemed like the price point was very, very low. And still, like, there were some deviations within that price. It felt like a mixed bag, but overall low.
Yeah, that's the I think that's the new norm. I mean, I think all these team models are just going to really push back on paying much for a rental bat. And when you think about long-term organizational health, it makes sense, right? Like
Makes all the sense in the world.
the idea of trading for a bat that is going to be on your team for a couple months
2 months,
and
yeah.
get 4 to 5 ABs a game, like they can only make so much of an impact. So it makes sense, but it's really interesting seeing how far this has gone to the point that the returns are generally going to be light for these rental bats.
Yep. Okay. Maybe the most head scratching trade of the deadline. Red Sox acquired Dustin May from the LA Dodgers. Dustin May, who was effectively forced out of the Dodger rotation with guys getting healthy. There was no spot for him. It's 104 innings at a 4.9 ERA. May is near double his previous career high in innings in the major leagues, and it has been by ERA his worst year in the major leagues. So, what do the Red Sox do? They give up the headlining prospect in the Rafi Devers return. James Tibbs III is the return for a rental Dustin May,
Yeah.
along with another outfielder in Zach Earhart.
Yeah.
This was a bizarre deal.
So well, the other weird part about it is you acquire him, promote him, right? They immediately promoted him.
Yeah,
He had a 586 OPS in 30 games in Double A because he was getting acclimated. And then yeah, I don't know how much of an impact that has on his value, but it didn't help. And then they trade him. I just that part I don't get. And then you talk about the optics of trading the headliner in the Rafi Devers trade, which was an optics nightmare, even though I was in agreement to a degree with the trade. Um, Weird, definitely weird. And then for Dustin May, we talked about it on the Just Baseball show. It didn't seem to make a ton of sense. Now, I think the fact that we've seen Tibbs traded twice now is probably a little bit indicative of the fact that he may just kind of be a guy that teams are looking at and saying, this could be a good player, but this is not a player that we're going to regret moving. He's not going to be so good that we look back and say, why did we do this?
yeah.
Um, and that's kind of always how I saw Tibbs. But at the same time, I still see a pretty good big leaguer potentially here, and probably not a guy that I'm jumping out of my chair to move for a rental. The swing decisions are good. The raw power is there, and he's hitting lefties way better than he did in college. So you pair all those things together, like I think that's enough to have interest in this guy and feel good about getting him. I mean, for the Dodgers to get him here is I think extremely exciting. And then not only that, you get Zach Earhart on top of him.
Yeah.
Earhart's a scrappy player that is a fun flyer to get here on top of him. Like I would have thought that it was enough just to get James Tibbs. And Earhart has played some good ball this year, and I honestly think could be a fun utility piece. You look at what he's done already, at 22 years old in Double A. This year he's got an 800 OPS, sub 20 chase rate. He hits the ball in the air consistently. He can run a little bit. He's at 24 doubles. To get him on top is kind of crazy for a rental.
There were a couple of things that the Dodgers have done recently that, just not surprise me, but make me think, okay, like they might be seeing something that the rest of the league doesn't. And there are two prospects that jump out to be like a one man's trash, another man's treasure type of thing. The best example of that is Sirota this year in that Gavin Lux deal.
Yeah.
But Tibbs kind of feels like, he's not going to lead minor league baseball in OPS, but he does kind of feel like the subdued version of that. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And the Dodgers, like, they know what they saw in Tibbs. I'm sure they went through the entire draft process and they're very content with acquiring a guy in Tibbs, much like Sirota, who was a faller after, a disappointing draft year at Northeastern. But another one that jumps out to me, like, and there could be some bias here, but like Matt Gorski got released,
Yeah.
and look who picked him up. Like the Dodgers, they're going to put him in AAA, and he's just going to mash Gorski. They picked up Luken Baker. They claimed him off waivers. I understand that Baker has a ton of flaws at the big leagues, but who's to say he's not, he's just another person the Cardinals couldn't get right that the Dodgers can get right. Like there are a lot of different flyers that the Dodgers have taken over the last year and a half that just fascinate me.
Well, and they're pursuing bat speed, and then they're saying, okay, well, what can we do with this? Bat speed is you can teach it, but you can't teach the you can't teach the baseline that some of these guys already have. So it's like, okay, well, if we teach even more, how much can we get more out of them? And then if we optimize these mechanics, how much can they leverage that to really be able to mash? And I see that with Tibbs as a guy with above average bat speed. You see that with Gorski, he's a guy that has really good bat speed, and Sirota, clearly that bat speed he wasn't tapping into, but they knew that it was in there, and it's elite now when you see what he's doing now. So I really like the shot to take there. And Tibbs has only played one professional season, right? So like this is a chance to. He's still early in his progression overall, where there's a little bit more molding that can still be done, even though he's a college bat. So I mean, the fact that the Dodgers farm system got better in a year
Yeah,
where they're still, I know they have not been playing well of late, but in a year where they're still the World Series favorites, pretty much, it's pretty interesting.
100%. Okay, let's go to the next one. Alex Call, speaking of the Dodgers. Call is acquired by the LA Dodgers for some bench depth, and they get a really solid fourth outfielder here in Call, who is a good athlete, doesn't really punch out, walks, and can swipe some bags as well. Call was acquired for Eric Swan and Sean Linan. Did we ever decide? Changeup is the pitch for him, right?
Yeah, we never decided what the name, what we're gonna go with pronunciation wise. I thought it was, I think Linan,
I thought
Linan.
there was an enye over the middle N, right? But Spot Track doesn't have that.
I don't know if there was an Enye, but Linan, uh, the changeup. Do you remember early in the year some of the numbers that we were throwing out on that? It was
They were
crazy.
absurd.
It was crazy.
Low A, this guy in 29 and two thirds had 50 punch outs.
They're still nuts, by the way. He's struggling to throw strikes consistently, and the fastball is 92 with like not very good shape. But I think he could do the Tommy Canley thing. Uh, Opponents against his changeup this year are 4 for 75 with
Wow.
56 strikeouts. It's
Wow.
disgusting. So this could be a guy that you just like. You can't teach that kind of changeup, that screwball type of changeup. They have a 248 OPS against it. The fastball stinks. The slider's not very good, but heck, just throw 70% changeups out because he's a starter right now. But I think throw 70% changeups out of the bullpen, and you got your own little Tommy Canley there. And then Eric Swan is just it's just a fun arm to take a shot on, right? I mean, we're talking about you're not going to get guys that are top 100 prospects, obviously for Alex Call, but you get a righty who's 6'7", averages 97 on his fastball, albeit with not the best characteristics or command. It's a 59% strike rate. But you get a 6'7" righty who has a plus sweeper, fastball that averages 97, and a cutter that looks like he can be an above average pitch off of that. So it's a 15% walk rate. He's a project. I think that the Dodgers were fine to move off of because they'll find a new project. But
Yeah.
I think it's a fun arm to add to the fold.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Okay, let's go to the Jake Bird deal. Jake Bird, who just got optioned to AAA Scranton by the Yankees, and really tough. Like it's a weird situation to enter with Jake Bird. This signals much more drastic things that I think it actually means. They needed to clear a spot for Judge. They had a feeling Slater was maybe headed to the IL, but he's not. And now you need to get the MVP back in the lineup. So Bird is kind of the corresponding move here. But it was Jake Bird for Rock Riggio and Ben Shields, two guys that had moderate to legit intrigue in the Yankee system. And all of a sudden, they're part of Rocktober in 2034.
Rock and Rocktober. I
Yeah,
love it. But uh, yeah, and that's why teams love to acquire optionable relievers because even good relievers will get optioned just for roster purposes, as you alluded to. So I agree. It doesn't really mean much. Um, Riggio is a fun
but
get here and something
I
I
will say
tweeted.
counter. I will say counter. It means everything to Yankee fans because they're looking to be pissed about anything
Yes.
right now.
What do you mean the guy that we just traded for
Yeah,
is
this guy
got an option?
sucks. He sucks, and we're
They
dead, and
didn't
we're gonna
know.
be
They
20 under 500. And
they
oh
found
my,
enough out in 2 games that everything changed. Their opinion is totally different now. They think he's a AAA arm. It's ridiculous. And then they live stream it now. Yeah, you live stream your crash outs as Yankee fans. That's how you get views.
that's good
Um,
stuff.
but Riggio is fun at altitude. I'm excited to see what that looks like at altitude. And look, it's a profile that defensively is going to be average at best at second base, but you get a lefty here who posts above average EVs, hits the ball in the air consistently. We're talking 36% ground ball rate, 18 homers this year, and you put him at altitude, it might work. His biggest issue, he demolishes fastballs. He whiffs a lot against sliders. Well, great. They'll be subdued a little bit at altitude. I think he's actually going to be a nice little piece for them. I do because you get above average power here from the left side in the infield, and they just need that. They need guys like that. So I liked the Riggio get.
Got you. Ben Shields, you got much on him?
Ben Shields, not really. But another lefty. They love their lefties. I
Yeah.
don't have the exact release characteristics in front of me, but I'd imagine there's some sort of funkiness to it. There has to be.
Probably 10 starts this year between high A and double, 40 and two-thirds. He's walked 15, punched out 46. He's been good over the course of his, minor league career, albeit it's only 2 years. He spent, let's see, he was at UMass in 2018. Then he was at UMass in 20. He didn't pitch in 19. UMass in 21, George Mason in 22, George Mason in
Well,
23. So he was a 24-year-old. Is that 6 years in college? One, two, three, four, five. No, 5 years
wow.
with missing a year because of injury. So 6 years in college, Ben Shields.
Woo. Low release lefty. Shocker.
Nice.
They found another. Just give us all your low release lefties. I think he could be a fun little piece for them. I think he's already being 26 is tough, but like he's got the funkiness as the low release lefty that they like. It gets some whiff on the fastball, good sweeper, good curveball. It could be just a swing man for them. They need arms.
Yeah. Jesus Sanchez, he went from Miami to Houston. It was, I want to say it was weird to see Sanchez in an Astros uniform, but it was like 3 days ago that he got traded. So
Yeah.
it was like, all right, I called him an old friend on the top of the game, and I was like, he's not an old friend. He was just here. Like, we
Yeah.
just missed him for a weekend. So new old friend Jesus Sanchez made his return to Miami as a Houston Astro 3 days after the deadline. But Sanchez was traded for Ryan Gusto, right-hander, who has graduated from prospect standards. He's, a guy that's thrown, I want to say like 70 something innings in the big leagues at a 4.9 ERA. But the two guys that they got in terms of minor league prospects, Chase Jaworski, who is a high A shortstop, and then Ismael Valencia, 19-year-old low A outfielder. Thing that jumps out about both those guys, bags. Ismael Valencia, 19 years old and low A, has 50 stolen bases already this year.
Yeah, the Marlins over their bags, right? I mean,
They
it's
they love their bags. You know what this was to me? Like I saw Ismael Valencia, it was like, okay, this is a Marion Boyd
yeah,
again. Like
yeah.
they did that again.
Yeah, and I mean it's definitely like the offensive profile is going to need to come along a little bit. He's very aggressive, but the EVs are sneaky decent. He's been better as the years progressed, and as you mentioned, he's still just 19 years old, so you get the speed and defense. And then Chase Jaworski, just turned 21 years old on the trade deadline. That's kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Happy
Welcome to the
birthday.
fish.
But I think has a good chance of being kind of that infield utility type, left-handed hitter. Yeah, can play shortstop, second base, can maybe fill in a little bit at third base as well. Above average contact rates, patient. The EVs aren't totally high, but he does have a decent average. Being able to just get his better swings off semi consistently. So I do think could be a nice depth piece for them, but the fact that you get a big league arm also headlining that, I think kind of was going to diminish the prospect return. But if you're trading with the Astros here, you are not going to get a huge prospect. So I kind of
Right.
I kind of like the Marlins approach of getting a controllable big league arm and then still getting two flyers on the prospect side.
What do you make of Gusto? Because the numbers, like, they're actually pretty solid. I understand 4.9 ERA. You look at that and it's like, oh, well, but it's his first 86 major league innings. And it's not like it's overwhelmingly loud stuff. Fastball characteristics seem good,
Yeah,
but this guy doesn't really walk people. He punches out enough people and he rides the fastball. And I think opponents are hitting under 200 against the heater.
the fastball characteristics are the part that I think I'm sure the Marlins really gravitated towards, and I'm sure they're excited to just tinker with the arsenal because you've got curveball, sweeper, cutter, sinker, changeup. And the Marlins have really enjoyed those like pitch design, that
Yeah.
just what would you even call it? Like pitch
It's
design
a pitch design session. So it's like,
session. I was
if,
looking
if,
for like the descriptor word after that. Like
yeah.
they
But
enjoy those, and like with a guy that has this template and the baseline of a hoppy fastball, it's not like it's 91, it's 94. I feel like they're probably looking at him as a guy that they can hopefully unlock more out of. But I imagine they're not bringing Cal Quantrill back after this year. We'll see. He could kind of plug right in and be their Cal Quantrill next year.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you look at obviously Jansen Junk is like kind of the gold standard of those pitch designs really working and blossoming a guy into a legit major league starting pitcher. But I look at what they tried doing with the Connor Gillespie, and it looked really solid in spring training, and then it just didn't really work for a minute at the beginning of the year. But this feels like a way better version
I was
of
going to say
Connor Gillespie.
he wasn't Gusto's starting from a higher floor here. Right?
Yeah.
Like I think he's on maybe the fourth or fifth level, and it was probably the first or second, with Gillespie. So
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Willi Castro deal. Willi Castro goes from Minnesota to the Chicago Cubs for two guys that I had never heard their name before. Willi Castro makes his way. Let's see, here we go. Willi Castro makes his way to Chicago for Ryan Gallagher and Sam Armstrong. What you got on either of those guys?
Ryan Gallagher, our guy Elijah, we'll watch him throw a good bit, I think, at UC Santa Barbara. But so he was talking about him in one of our heat sheets actually, when he was just shoving for a little stretch in high A, and got the promotion to double A, where first two outings he was fantastic and then got roughed up a little bit in the last one. 6'4", 225, fastball with, I mean, he was like upper 80s in college. And then he ticked up now in his first pro season. He's averaging 92 miles per hour on the fastball, which is really all he needs. Excuse me, because he's getting plus vert. Like he's getting good carry on the fastball, and I think that definitely helps. It's a very over the top release, but he does get good carry on it. The changeup tunnels really well off of it, and then he's got the kind of the gyro slider. It's that Blue Jays template we were kind of talking about. So I think it's an interesting three pitch mix that could be good enough to get him into back into the rotation role if it works out. But decent arm to add into the fold, especially if he can hold that 92 mile per hour uptick. And then it's kind of a similar story with Armstrong where it's lower velocity stuff, but he's more of like the kitchen sink, where he's averaging 92 with the four seamer and then 93 with the sinker, and then it's sweeper that's his best pitch, and then a cutter and a curveball, and maybe you hope he can be a swing man, but he's 24. So I think Gallagher's the guy that you're hoping can blossom into a potential five starter.
I just realized I didn't have Everson Pereira or Oswald Peraza on this list of traded prospects. Is that okay?
That's
Will you
okay.
forgive?
It's okay.
I was scrolling and I saw the Caballero for Everson Pereira and a player to be named later. I was like, do we need to break down Everson Pereira? Hell no.
I'm okay.
Let's go to the Bailey Falter package. My favorite deal of the deadline. I thought this was an absolute haul for Bailey Falter for Pittsburgh, but I'm kidding. Bailey Falter goes from Pittsburgh to Kansas City, a starter with multiple years of control that has thrown 115 innings at a 3.70 ERA. The return is Evan Sisk and Callan Moss. Sisk, through his first 5 major league appearances, has been okay, but he has struggled over the course of pretty much the entirety of his minor league career. And then Moss is a first baseman who is a big boy that can hit the ball hard, but he's got 7 homers so far in just under 100 games in high A, and he plays first base. This deal, from a big league perspective, made absolutely zero sense to me why Pittsburgh would ever do this. Um, but what kind of prospects are the Pirates getting in Sisk and Moss?
I mean, Moss has good raw power, and I think that's what you're betting on here. But to get a high A first baseman and a 28-year-old kind of up and down reliever
DFA candidate.
uh, for a controllable starter, it's kind of shocking. But I mean, I guess Moss, you're hoping is just going to develop enough to turn into that above average power guy. It's above average raw. He's hit a ton of doubles this year. He's trying to turn that into more game, home runs in terms of he's at 22 doubles, 3 triples, 7 homers. But it's an EV90 of 105, hard hit rate of 45%. Like there's above average underlying there. He's still 21 years old, but he's kept the strikeout rate in check. But man, like a high A first baseman and a 28-year-old reliever. Just very surprising deal for me. I'm with you.
Dude, it just made zero sense to me, unfortunately. Okay, a couple more here. Adrian Hauser, that package. Hauser, one of the premier pop-ups when it comes to, what happened at the deadline. Hauser moves from Chicago to Tampa, just started on Monday for the Tampa Bay Rays. They return Curtis Mead, who has graduated from prospect standards but still somehow feels prospecty, along with a couple of pitchers, Ben Peoples and Duncan Davitt. Let's start with Mead. He was a change of scenery candidate, but he was also an extended runway candidate. I'm not going to call him Michael Bush because I don't think he's anywhere
No,
close to like what Michael Bush can do offensively, but it felt like the Rays version of Bush, where they had somebody with legit top 100 prospect intrigue that they just couldn't get into the lineup because Paredes was there, and then Caminero was there, and then, oh, by the way, Yandy was playing first base, and second base they tried for a minute, but it just wasn't the right fit.
it's funny. I think he's like in between where I think he got a little bit more opportunity and didn't seize it as much. So it's like he feels more Miguel Vargas to me,
Okay,
if
yeah,
that makes sense. Where like if he got full time regular reps and wasn't probably pressing to try to stick on a team that's trying to win ball games now, it probably would have been a little bit easier. And I think he has a chance to settle in there, like the way Vargas has. But Mead, it's funny when they send him back to AAA, he's just too good for AAA. And he was up and down a little bit, but when you look at the looking like from July 4th onward, when they sent him back down, he did get back up for 2 games. So if I remove those two, he played 16 games in AAA and he had a 908 OPS. He's hitting 300.
yeah.
He's just too good for that level. So I think at the very least here, you're getting a guy that historically, he's not doing it this year, but historically has crushed lefties. So can fill that role. And I think he's a great flyer to get. This is a guy that, again, the Vargas thing worked for you. If it works out anything like that, I think you feel pretty good about it. Ben Peoples, I really like as a nasty arm that could potentially fit into their pen if he can just throw a few more strikes. Opponents rating
Yep.
184 against him this year. He's a guy that I think a lot of teams were looking at in the Rule 5. And it's 96 with good ride and then a cutter at 89 that just really bites off of it. If he can just hone in on the command a little bit more, he could be a fun relief piece.
Yeah. Two more guys to talk about. Brandon Valenzuela. Valenzuela is part of the funniest trade that I had that day. Will Wagner goes from Toronto to San Diego for Brandon Valenzuela, who has proven to be catcher depth in the Padres organization, has not made his debut. He's somebody that people started to like again this year. Valenzuela, 1-for-1 swap. Wagner goes to San Diego. What do you make of Brandon Valenzuela? I'm going to opt out of analyzing this.
Yeah, well, people were really bugging us about him when he got off to the hot start. I just see a depth catcher. I think the defense helps his case, but look at his last 30 games, sitting 144, 228, 216. It's a 445 OPS. So yeah, he's a switch hitter, but it's like wasn't Sandy Leon a switch hitter? Um,
Yeah.
so I don't think there's a ton there to get excited about, but he's fine catching depth. Maybe can be a backup if he can kind of harness what he did in the first half of the season, where it was really good.
It's almost like I know what I'm talking about sometimes. And then last guy, We got to talk about is Ivan Brethowr, who is effectively Aaron Judge. Brethowr was the return for Taylor Rogers, who was rerouted from Pittsburgh to Chicago as part of that Key Brian Hayes deal. Brethowr last year, after his draft year at Santa Barbara, where he hit 15 homers in 50 games, 23 games in low A last year, hit a buck 69 with 2 homers. This year, through 85 games, hitting 220 with 4 homers. He's stealing a bunch of bags, and he's 6'6", 250, but you got to see this guy hitting taters, and he's just not hitting taters.
Yeah, he kind of ditched the Aaron Judge swing and
Did
and
he?
and set up, and now I don't even know. It looks like he's experimenting with different things every video I watch. Sometimes it's like no stride. Sometimes he like kicks the leg out like he's Spencer Jones, and sometimes it's a little bit more judgy, but he's definitely trying to start, stacked on the backside. I'd bet my life he went to Mr. Richard Shank,
Shank, right? Yeah.
Shank. Uh, but yeah, it's just not working for him right now. I mean, a fun flyer, 6'6", 250, see what can happen. But I mean, his EV90 is 102 and a half. So it's going to be hard for that to work.
Gotcha. That's who we got. Those are all the prospects that, were dealt of consequence at deadline day.
All right. Well, it's a lot of them. And let us know which of the trades you thought was kind of like the biggest surprise, what packages you liked. And we're going to talk top 100 newcomers and then first heat sheet in a little bit coming up later this week. And that's all we got. As always, thank you for listening. If you could help us grow the show, share it with your friends, leave a rating, that would be great. Join the Discord. We'd love to have you in there. We're always talking prospects and all that good stuff there. And we'll talk prospects with you tomorrow.